Good morning, everybody. And good morning to everybody in Nipawa. This is our second last sermon about being happy. So if you're not happy by now, you got 2 weeks. 2 weeks to get it together. If you haven't joined us for that series since it started in September, it's all online. Because we're getting close to the end, we just have to take some things for granted. So I won't be able to explain everything, but basically the gist is Jesus has just talked for 3 chapters in the Bible, 2 chapters, about things that make you blessed or happy. And he's going to teach people how to put their lives together in such a way that they are strong, secure, that they have the elements that allow them to be happy, but there's some things that get in the way of that. Things like if you're 6 years old and you're a little girl and you love playing with the boys in the neighborhood, and you come in the front door and you're just caked in filth, like head to toe. You were playing football. And there's actually like a bloody 9-year-old guy still out there who you're especially proud that you left in your wake. And you walk in the front door and you're a well-manicured mom who hasn't gone anywhere that day but is still like dressed to the nines with a beautiful pedicure, manicure, pedicure's toes, manicure, looks at you and goes, ugh, and then says to your dad, can you come and get your daughter and clean her up? And he kind of laughs and comes and gets you and cleans you up. A few years later, you're going to what's your first like junior high dance, and you've got a dress on, and it's a little bit off the shoulder, so you're 12. It's not the most secure thing to be wearing, but you're going to go for it. And you come down the stairs out of your room, and mom and dad see you, and they both say, oh, honey, you look so lovely. That's beautiful. You're going to have so much fun. But they make the mistake of not knowing when you're out of earshot. And you can hear them when you are around the corner start to snicker. And dad says, yeah, those shoulders are definitely built for football and not for wearing a dress. And you get the sense that you have somehow disappointed them. That there's something about you that is flawed, that it's unique to you. We'll call this the personal part of learning to be helpless. Something about you, it's not going to go away. It's just you take it with you that's going to probably disappoint people at some time. And it's not just going to be about your shoulders or your femininity or however you want to categorize that. You're going to be a disappointment to lots of people. It's just kind of who you are in all sorts of areas. So you're always waiting for them to find out that thing about you that nobody realizes right away, but eventually everyone realizes, and then they're disappointed in you. And no matter what you do, it's never going to go away. It's permanent. You have learned how to be helpless. So this is not legitimate helpless. There's victims out there that cannot change their lot, and one of the things that we actually want to do as a church is help those people who can't help themselves. This is different. This is somebody who actually could learn to help themselves, but they've learned how to be helpless. If there's a place in your life where you're saying, it's just me, and it's every area of my life, and it's not going away, there's nothing I can do, you have in that area learned to be helpless. Maybe for you, it was more like the little boy who's like 10, and he's in the garage with his dad, and they're working on the motorcycle, and dad has him passing him tools. But he doesn't know the names of screwdrivers, even though they've been there many times. He's like, you need a little square one or like the little pointy one? His dad's like, no, we've been over this so many times. They have special names, names which I'm not telling you right now because I don't know. Not my story, though, just so you know. It's kind of all my story. His shoulders are made for football. So he's sitting in the garage, and he's trying to pass the right tool, but he's gangly, awkward, and he's knocking stuff over, and a tool ends up in a jug of something disgusting, and his dad is just frustrated. And he says, man, this really isn't your thing, is it? Not like super cruel, and it's not really his thing at that moment because he's all elbows and he's 10 years old. Settles into his heart as not being his thing. And then it becomes personal. So he doesn't ask Dad if he can go to the garage anymore, and Dad doesn't really ask. So it drives it even deeper. Yeah, this is just you. You're not really ever going to be good at working with your hands. And it's not just like fixing motorcycles. It's cutting baseboards. It's shoveling snow. It's little things around the house. That's just never really going to be you. All areas of your life, you're just not going to be good at fixing things. And there's nothing you can do. Don't bother trying to watch tutorials or anything. It's just inherent to who you are. It's personal. Some people have it, some don't. It's really not your thing. Personal, pervasive, permanent. And we all have this learned helplessness. Maybe we're not that smart. Well, that's not actually true. You were just told that. And now you think it's like all areas. So somebody says, you ever think about going back to school? You're like, why would I ever think about going back to school? Because I can't do anything to change it. Learned helplessness is a part, I think, of every one of our lives, and that's why it's so good around here that we have things like the Father's Embrace, where you actually go back to where those lies were told to you, and you impose the truth about who God says you are onto yourself, and then you can have some measure of freedom. Because when you see the world this way, that you're a disappointment, you will interpret people's relationships with you as disappointing, right? You get the self-fulfilling prophecy because you're putting that out there. And we all have a friend who makes like a minor mistake, and they're like, I'm just stupid, I'm an idiot. You're like, what? No. Why are you having this insane reaction to you dropped something? It's all tied up in this, and no matter how you talk to them about it, it doesn't matter. Now that you have to talk to them about it, they see, I am so stupid. Now you have to break this down for me. If I was any kind of person that was smart, I would get it right away. I wouldn't have this pattern, and just keeps spiraling. You cannot be happy and be this kind of helpless at the same time. You can't be. Jesus knows that, but he knows that for those of us who have learned helplessness in a whole bunch of areas, we transfer that into the Jesus area where Jesus is teaching us things, and for whatever reason we picked up along the way that we've learned about ourselves, that it's in all areas and that it's never going to go anywhere, we look at Jesus' teachings and we're like, yeah, I don't actually think I can do this. For whatever reason. And so we stop before we even take one step towards happy because we're pretty sure, no matter how hard we try, no matter how much we lean into this, it's actually not going to take us anywhere. Jesus is really clear that's not the case. And at the end of his Sermon on the Mount, which is his teachings about reality and how to be a happy, strong human being, he says this in Matthew 7:24. It starts with, therefore everyone. Now it's interesting because the last paragraph, he was talking about something else, and he says, not everyone. So Jesus, sounds silly, but Jesus is the kind of person who makes distinctions, right? Maybe you have somebody in your life who just encourages you no matter what, right? You were a little kid, you put your shoes in the wrong feet. They're like, oh, at least you put your shoes on. At least you can breathe through your nose. That's good. You just had a really affirming person in your life. Jesus is not stupidly affirming of you. Okay? When you do things wrong, Jesus will let you know. When you're not in the lump of people that are doing these good things, he puts you in the not everyone category. So don't mistake this as Jesus is just like this kindly old grandfather, and after he says some nice things to you, he's going to give you a Snickers bar. It's just what he does. No, Jesus makes distinctions. So here, this means something when he says everyone. Therefore, everyone. Every single one. I looked this up to make sure it actually meant everyone. Because sometimes when you go from Greek to English, it can mean other things. No, this means everyone. So the person who thinks they're a disappointment, the person who thinks they're not smart enough, the person who thinks they're not strong enough, the person who thinks they're not capable enough, Jesus, well aware of everybody's things that might disqualify themselves, he says, no, everyone. That's you. I feel like I'm already kind of making this real clear, but I'm going to do it one more time. If I were to say, put up your hands if you're everyone, then you would all put your hands up, self-identifying as one member of the human race, not disqualified, you. And you're like, no, but surely Jesus didn't mean me. No! What I'm trying to say is that yes, he did mean you. Me? Really? Yes, you. But does he know about? Yes, not disqualified. Everyone. Now, what he doesn't say, because he's about to say some good things about you, he does not say, everyone is pretty much good how they are. They don't have to really work on anything. Now, he believes you're valuable. He's already said that in the Sermon on the Mount. He's compared you to a bunch of other things and said, aren't you more valuable than them? So before you've done anything, you're still valuable. But you don't get to go through life on autopilot and assume that things that are happy and good will happen. But you are the sort of person for whom, if you make the right choices every single day, happy things will happen for you. Therefore, everyone. I don't know that I've ever spent more time on two words in a verse. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice, right, so there's your part. Now remember, this is not, what he's taught us is not, oh man, okay, so first I have to get my master's in theology and then physics, and then I can start to obey Jesus. Or first I need to do some sort of weird ceremony and get spiritual so that I can follow Jesus. No, he's saying, be generous to other people. You see somebody who doesn't have a jacket, you have two jackets, give them a jacket. What I'm saying is, you can choose every single day to do this stuff, or you choose every single day to not do this stuff. It is within the grasp of everyone to do the things that Jesus is teaching in this sermon, and if your honest intention is to do it, you will be able to actually do these things. It's more about your intention than your ability. Everyone who hears these words of mine and intends to and actually does put them into practice is like this. It's like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. So we're singing over and over a while ago about building our house on a firm foundation. It's an allusion actually probably to this text. I will do this is what we commit to doing. And what we're saying then, I will follow everything you ever said, Jesus, to the letter, which we didn't actually sing, thankfully, because we'd feel weird, almost as weird as when I sang it to you. But that's the gist of it. You're saying, this stuff doesn't happen automatically. I have to do it. Now, right away you go, can I? Jesus says, yes, you can. Everyone on this hill listening to my sermon, every one of you can do this, you illiterate peasants, which not you guys, but the people that he's talking to. You can do this. You can be this house when the storms come. Flip side, classic rabbinical technique, ancient teacher shows you the other side of it. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the wind blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. And now Jesus is done. When Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowd were amazed at his teaching because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. Two pictures, two houses. One that stands, one that falls when the storms come. And everyone gets to choose. Now, you're tempted a little bit maybe to go into yeah, but bad things happen to good people too. Yeah, Jesus isn't talking about any of that. Storms are still going to be there. Storms are inevitable. Right? Anybody had a storm-free life? Storm-free morning? No, they come. But your house might have fallen down this morning. Might have been embarrassing. Big crash. Well, you built it on something that doesn't stand up to the slightest breeze, let alone a strong storm. And Jesus is really saying that's not a big deal. Because if you start to listen to me and make different choices, then you start to build on a rock, and you'll be amazed at not only what you can survive, but how you can thrive when you're doing this. It's for everyone. Now, there's something that we do here, I think, for those of us who don't want to put ourselves in this category. I don't want to be in the learned helplessness category. Like, that's really depressing. So we invent a different category. Think of it this way. The learned helplessness person says, I can't. I just can't. Because of what's wrong with me, because it's all through me, because it's never going to change, I can't. The person who's a little more subtle, who doesn't want to put themselves in this category, says one of two other things. They either say, not I can't, but they say, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered. They take their helplessness and their fear and they hide it behind apathy. I can't be bothered. I just can't care. I don't know why some people get so excited about that stuff. I just can't. Whether that's so much drama at work, I mean, who cares? I just detach. Or I couldn't be bothered with all those people that are in poverty. I mean, you wouldn't say it that way, but they made their own mess, right? So they could just figure it out. I mean, I can't. Couldn't be bothered. It's clever language to hide from yourself what people who are trying to avoid storms do. See, Jesus is not teaching us how to avoid storms. He's teaching us how to build a strong enough house to withstand storms. But most of us often can take the strategy of, you know what, instead of trying to build this house, I'm just going to try and avoid the storms. And what we end up doing is, I'm going to build the world's smallest house so that when the wind comes, it hardly is even noticeable. Because I've shrunk my life so much because I can't be bothered to serve, I can't be bothered to give, I can't be bothered to doing anything risky or vulnerable. That's where the storms come. If I start to care, life gets really stormy. So I'm going to shrink my life to my shop. I'm going to shrink my life to my reality TV. I'm going to live vicariously through people because I still kind of want to have a big life, but I don't want to have the risk or pain that comes with it. I couldn't be bothered. Sounds kind of cool. Sounds like you're above all the mess. It's just fear, baby. You want to have a big life and you're scared, and so you present, I couldn't be bothered. Another sweet tactic that people use is something like, you know what, if I really get into something, I get into it like 100%, so and then they just trail off. You know, if I really get into something, I get into it like 100%, so no, I don't know. Why wouldn't you want to get into what Jesus is doing 100%? Well, but it's because at 100% is where it starts to get scary. 100% in on your marriage makes you pretty vulnerable. 100% in on your kids is pretty risky. 100% in on generosity with your finances and your time, you are wide open to receive a punch in the stomach. But your posture to life is like this, which is a great big life, instead of like this. It's these clever little games we play. I couldn't be bothered. If I get into that, I'll be like too into it. It's like when overachieving people call worry stress. It's like, no, you're just worried. Just call it worry. Stress sounds so like smart of you. No, you're just worried. So we can't get away from this sort of stuff where we try to shrink our lives, whatever way, so that the storms we don't feel them. I think that the best way to understand the popularity of sports, reality TV, online gaming, is that our desire to have a big life is still there. We're just too scared. So you live vicariously through your own team that you manage, or somebody else throws the football and you'd wear the jersey. Somebody else flips the home, you sit in your basement. Detach, and it keeps you away from a great big life. Jesus says, no, those urges that you have to be significant, to be vulnerable, to actually live, I have given those to you, but not so that you're vulnerable and afraid all the time. I've given those to you so that you can listen to me, build your life on my words, and you will be strong enough to handle the storms. And you can do that. And you start by believing him that he thinks you can. Jesus never calls anybody to do anything he doesn't think they can do. And if you say to him, Jesus, I think I can, he doesn't go when you're out of earshot. So you see the football shoulders on this one? There's no way. Jesus is an affirming brother who represents an affirming father who wants nothing better than to correct the voices that have pushed you to this place. And he does it. We can cross this out, and I don't know if you can see it as well. And I'm not entirely sure that I spelled it right anyway. Holiness. Learned holiness. Now, what comes to your mind when you think of holiness? Pictures of the Pope, maybe? Somebody like living in a monastery somewhere. No. The picture that needs to come to your mind when you think about holiness is of a beautiful home situated on a rock with streams of light coming out of it, laughter, people running to it to seek shelter. Well, the storms around are everywhere, causing houses to crash, but this house is standing firm and it's safe. Why? Because it's a house that learned how to be holy. Holiness is weight, and holiness is strength, and Jesus wants to teach you how, and he does it personally because he calls your name. And he says, you can do it. And then he says, if you give me yourself in one area of your life, I will continue to knock on every door until my influence is felt all through your life, and I will never leave you or forsake you. I might be disappointed in the choices you make sometimes, but Jesus will never be disappointed in you. Leave the learned helplessness behind. Listen to the voice that speaks truth to you, teaches you how to be holy, teaches you how to be strong. I'm going to invite the band forward to sing a song along these lines. I'll turn it over to Nipawa here, and I'll invite you to stand as we sing together.